everyone, Swing Pony here. Welcome to the Place Your Trades Network, where we discuss trading daily options using the CME Group's event contracts. These give us access to 10 different futures markets, including the E-mini S&P, NASDAQ, natural gas, silver, gold, copper, and more. We have a fantastic show ahead on State of Flow. Matt Petrallia is going to be joining me. He is a veteran trader with over 25 years of experience, and he's just really good at being level-headed in terms of expectations of the market, being a reality-based trader, and really understanding how you come into play in the market in terms of your own unique traits and characteristics. So the topic that we're going to be discussing today is trading according to your own personality. I think a lot of times we all have traders that we look up to, people that we want to be more like, but at the end of the day, we're also unique in our own different ways. And a lot of this comes through in how we are as traders. Trading highlights our strengths, our weaknesses, and all the different ways in terms of how this is such a unique and personal experience. So fascinating conversation ahead. I could talk about this stuff for hours. Before we get started, though, this broadcast is brought to you by Tradeovate. They've created the custom app that we all trade these event contracts on. If you like, taking a few trades at the end of the day, if you're an SPX lotto type of person, event contracts are amazing. You have to put a lot less skin in the game. The risk reward is phenomenal. There's just a lot of really great ways to trade them. So I encourage you to download the app and check it out. Big announcement, we are doing a giveaway for Las Vegas in April. So the Place Your Trades team and I will actually be headed out there for the money show. And we are inviting one other person to come out and join us. So your hotel's going to be covered. You're going to go to the money show. You're going to get to have dinner with us. It's going to be a blast. I'll be there. Penny Lane, Anthony Crudele, Anne Marie, OG Trades, Pax, Shy Girl, Dream Team. It's going to be so much fun. All you have to do to enter to win is go to placeyourtrades.com/Vegas. Make sure you do it before March 1st, because March 1st, we're going to be announcing the winner live on air, and we'll let you know if you get to be the one to come with us. Do it. It's going to be so much fun. All right, let's go ahead and get Matt out here. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I saw your interview with Richard and I was like, this guy gets it. I want to talk to him. I want to pick his brain.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Richard's a great person, has a lot of great interviews out there, has a really good channel. So pleasure talking with him also.
Fantastic interviews. Before we jump into the topic, I do want to ask you, can you tell me a little bit more about your background, your trading style, how long you've been doing this?
Yeah, I am self-taught, came from a totally different background. I was actually an architect way back in the day when I had some hair. I was in the building industries for a while, but trading was always something that caught my imagination and eventually kind of transitioned into trading more full-time. And so I've been doing this for 25-ish years. It's kind of lose track after it gets up past 20, I think.
Totally.
But I've gone through a lot of different phases, kind of a lot of different iterations as a trader, especially early on. But for the last 15-ish to 20 years, I've been a primarily swing trader and position trader. And so I primarily trade equities. I do have option strategies that I use as well, but I think that kind of sums it up. And I'm generally trading classical chart patterns. So I'm always looking for strength. I'm looking for the strongest sectors, strongest industries, strongest stocks within those industries, and trying to get in on consolidation patterns. So I think that's the general summary.
So you look for consolidation and potentially room to the upside?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I will trade short in a bull market, a roaring bull market. I'm not looking to go short. I'm always looking to follow the trend. But when we're in a situation like we've been in for 2022, going into 2023, I will go to the short side, in an obvious downtrend.
Totally. Or especially with these bear market rallies, right?
Right.
Where they say they go on long and strong enough to where even the last bear standing is like, wait a minute, this might be a bull market, time to exit my positions. And that's exactly when they rug pull you.
And you never know. I mean, so people are always trying to create these labels and label it one thing or the other, but you never know. We'll only know 6 months from now, 8 months from now,
Totally.
how to classify this.
And I think what happens at that point is we're all going to be like, oh, in hindsight,
Right.
I should have known, but it doesn't work that way. I mean,
Trading is incredibly easy in hindsight.
everything is easy in hindsight. It's sort of like trading a woulda, shoulda, coulda account.
Right.
I would have $1 billion in mind, but that's just
Exactly.
not the way the market works.
Right.
So 25 years, that is an incredibly long time. And what I'd be curious to hear from you, because I don't know, we'd say about 2 years into my trading journey. I think a lot of people, a lot of COVID retail traders, they're early on and they constantly feel this pressure of like getting it right.
Mhm.
And, it's nice to hear somebody who's been doing this for 25 years. What was year two like for you? Did you have it all figured out? What was that journey like? And what would you say to newer traders who are in the process and in the journey?
Yeah, I would start by saying it's year 25-ish and I still don't have it all figured out. What I have figured out is what works for me.
Hmm.
And I'm very good at managing risk, good at managing my account. That's what I think you can really, really improve on year after year. You never get to the point where you have it figured out. Like you know what's going to happen next. Oh, I nailed this market scenario. I can play this like a fiddle. I'm never going to be wrong. That absolutely never happens. And it's always a journey along the way of really finding things out about yourself and about how you react in certain situations and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So I guess what I would go back to myself 2 years in, it's tough to compare because I think, when I started out, there were very, very few resources. So it was very much of a solitary kind of endeavor trying to
There
figure
was
this
no
out yourself.
Discord, no
There was no
Discord.
Discord. There's certainly no Discord. So it was very much, and I think a lot of people went through this that are around my age. You're really doing it yourself, especially if you're doing it on your own. If you're not working at a Wall Street firm or something like that,
Sure.
you're really doing it on your own. You're reading books, certainly books out there, but you don't have that kind of like daily input from other people. So you're a lot of trial by error.
Hmm.
And I made every mistake I could think of, other than quitting, which is one of the things I always say that I think the only mistake I didn't make was quitting. And that's the one that takes you out of the game entirely. But
Sure.
what I would focus on and what I always tell new traders and traders that I work with, traders that I'm mentoring, is that you really want to focus on risk management. And you want to focus on the fact that you want to be in the market for a lifetime. It's not about, let's make $5 million in 3 months with very little experience, which is lots of people try to sell you that that's possible.
Oh, yeah.
But I try to tell people that you want to get yourself a foundation so that you can be in the market for a lifetime and really compound those gains over a lifetime. And that's when you can really, really make a difference in your financial life. It's not the sexy stuff that people want to hear, but
Totally.
focusing on risk management and keeping yourself in the game and gaining consistency is really the focus you want to have, I think, when you're 2
Yeah.
years in.
I love that because I think the statement I always think about is live to trade another day. I
Right.
mean, when you go into the market and you expect a single day to either completely make you or break you, you're not going to last.
Right.
That's something that, early on, I think a lot of people, myself included, struggled with was we hit it hard in the beginning. Like the market that we started out in, everything was like delivered on a silver platter.
Right.
Everything. I mean, you throw a dart, that stock is going up. You look like a genius. You think you have it figured out. The last year or so, it's been a completely different market. It's been a lot more difficult. And I think it's sort of having to rewire the brain from thinking like, okay, I can make money every single day. I can make a lot of money every single day, to slow it down. Like now you have to figure out risk management. Now you have to, you know, maybe have a different expectation of what you're making and really just try to survive instead of try to hit a home run every single day.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and specifically if you're talking about people that came into the market in 2020, where we just had the rip roaring bubble market, essentially,
Mhm.
can create a lot of bad habits to start with, and then you have to unlearn those bad habits.
Yeah,
So I think people, they're kind of like they're born in different eras into the world of trading, and it's different environments, and it really, puts different things in your brain. It's like kind of like the old generational thing. People that were born in the depression, like have a completely different mindset about money and how they
sure.
should live their lives and et cetera. I think that the same thing can be said when you enter trading, so if you entered trading during 2020, where, like you said, everything was, a rising tide lifts all ships, and you could basically have very poor discipline, very poor risk management, and the market was going to bail you out because it was just roaring higher every single day. Every chart you looked at was going to break out. Every
It was
consolidation
all
pattern you
vertical.
saw was going to break
Yeah,
out to the upside. So you didn't have to focus on the risk management. And a lot of people felt like they were geniuses, right? Because they weren't focusing on those things and still making money. And the market has obviously changed, as it always does, right? And there
sure.
will always be a downturn. And the contrast was very, very stark for those people that didn't know anything but the 2022 market, or the 2020 market, excuse me. And now is the chance to really test your mettle and see if you're going to last, right? Because there's every cycle, there's people that come in, especially towards the top, the euphoric phase.
Yep.
And there's people who think, oh, well, why have I been working? When I could be just doing this, all I have to do is click a couple buttons and I'm rich,
Exactly.
right? And that, the reality of trading is the reason why people have been working, because it doesn't work that way. And you have to be very disciplined, and it takes a long time to really figure out a style that works for yourself. But now's the time, in a downswing where you really get the muscles of risk management and discipline and having realistic expectations built up, so that you
Sure.
can last. You can, like you said, live to trade another day. One of the things I usually say is, what do you get when you focus on risk management first? You get to trade again tomorrow, because there's lots of
Mhm.
people that, especially in the beginning, especially when you're using leverage, you can blow up very easily if you're not paying attention to risk
Yeah,
management. So hanging in the game is a big focal point.
for sure. There was, gosh, I know it was a February. This whole COVID era and moving to LA, my whole concept of time has been very shifted. Like, I don't know what happened to 2020, 2021,
Sure.
2022, but it was a specific February where I had made so much money that month. So much money. Every day I was hitting a new milestone out of nowhere. And I remember just sort of doing the math on, like, oh, wait, this is like this much of my annual salary. Like, I've got this figured out. I could just do this. And at this point, I could leave my job. I could do this full time. And I remember sort of sharing with my trading group, like, guys, is this normal? Like, and they were all hitting the same milestones at the same time. And
Right.
I kid you not, literally the week after, it all changed.
Right.
It all changed. So it's been a very humbling but fun and challenging learning experience. Like, that's what I love about trading. And then sort of, being realistic about the time frame as well, I think is very important. There's a quote I want to pull up from James Clear, who I absolutely adore. He's the author of Atomic Habits.
Sure.
So the quote is, most big, deeply satisfying accomplishments in life take at least 5 years to achieve. This can include building a business, cultivating a loving relationship, writing a book, getting in the best shape of your life, raising a family, and more. 5 years is a long time. It is much slower than most of us would like. If you accept the reality of slow progress, you have every reason to take action today. If you resist the reality of slow progress, 5 years from now, you'll simply be 5 years older and still looking for a shortcut. Love. Um, because, this was a bit of an instant gratification market at first, reading something like this and sort of accepting and coming to terms with, hey, this is a journey. Like, this is not a get rich quick scheme. It's actually very peaceful because it takes the pressure off of yourself that you can kind of put in on a day-to-day basis of, like, I have to get this trade today. Like, I have to make X amount today. No,
Sure.
you've got a lifetime ahead of you.
Sure. Yeah, they're just to pick up on that last statement, I think one of the things you learn over the years, and you really start to internalize it, that you don't feel that way in the beginning, is that there is always another trade, right?
Mhm.
So you can beat yourself up for missing something, or why did I second guess myself and not enter this trade? Look at it now, it's running, all of
Of
that.
course.
There's always another one, right? So I mean, you can take a step back from the market entirely for a month, and you come back, and guess what? The market is still there, and there's still opportunities there. So
Yep.
one of the things I say on Twitter, and I think we're all kind of susceptible to the Twitter world of putting out little short, quirky phrases, right? But one of the things I say on Twitter, is that if you want it to happen overnight, it's going to take you even longer. So if you're that kind of person that I need this to happen immediately, what's going to end up happening is it's going to actually take you even longer to figure
Yep.
out where you need to be and what you need to do to get to the ultimate goal, which I think is longevity. And I think going off on a little bit of a tangent, I think that the Twitter impulses that are out there can really feed into that instinct that I need this to happen immediately, because there's a lot of people selling action. There's a lot of people selling get rich quick ideas, let's call it. And
Yep.
people, are very eager to eat that up. But in reality, if you have more reasonable expectations of, this takes a long time. Why should I be really good at this overnight? What sense that what are you really good at in life overnight? Not
Right.
much, right? It's not. Why would trading be any different? So you have to realistically understand it's going to take you quite a while to figure out what works for yourself. And it's not about outsmarting the market, because that will never happen. The market is a market. You're never going to outsmart it. It's about figuring out what works for you along the way, right? And that's the journey. And it really never ends, but you do get better at things like risk management and understanding your own psychology.
Well, I think this brings us into the topic that we wanted to discuss today perfectly, which is trading according to your personality, right? Because I know this is something you've discussed before. There is sort of this instinct and this desire to want to, especially when you're in the learning phase, and we're in a different era now. We've got Twitter, we've got Discord. You see all these people doing things differently, and you want to mimic them. You want to be like them. You want to figure out how to do it, the way Matt's doing it, the way John Carter's doing it, the way Sati's doing it, whoever the traders that you follow are, right? But you can never perfectly mimic what somebody else is doing, because we're also different in so many different ways.
Right.
So what does trading according to your personality mean to you? And what are certain things about your personality that are reflected in the market?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. And I think that, the way you ask that question is really part of the way that I'll answer it. Is that a lot of people will try to mimic somebody and then ultimately understand and realize that they can't, but they may not understand the reason behind it, right? They think that they're doing something wrong because they're not able to emulate exactly what this person is doing. But the real secret, I think, after having done this for a long time and made tons of mistakes, is that you take pieces, you take frameworks from people, you take ideas and things that make sense to you, things that resonate with you from other people. But you have to get in there and get your knuckles bruised and try to implement what they're doing, try to execute what they're doing, and inevitably you're going to have to tweak things to work for you. So you can take someone's framework, but you have to tweak certain aspects of it. Once you find a framework that resonates with you, tweak certain aspects of it to your personality. So for me, for instance, I've read, tons of stuff, Mark Minervini, Bill O'Neill, a lot of the, Gil Morales, a lot of the kind of classic equities traders that are out there. And I, take pieces and chunks from each one of them, but then you have to make it your own. And I'll never be Mark Minervini or Gil Morales, because they have completely different personalities than I do. And one of the things that I do that I think is a little bit different is I treat options a different way. I treat leverage a different way. I do things like really, really focus on risk management. And I think that a lot of people can have a loose relationship with risk management. If you're a professional trader who's achieved longevity, you do not have a loose relationship with risk management, because you wouldn't,
Right, because you wouldn't be
have
here.
achieved longevity.
Yeah.
But I'll have a focus on different things. And for instance, using leverage is one of them. You asked for an example. I'll use leverage perhaps differently than I see a lot of traders using leverage. And that's because of my personality, because of what works for me. Or I will have, a system where I'm taking partials on the way up that may be different than somebody else, because that works for me, right? And other people, people have very different risk tolerances and very different ways of handling kind of the mental stresses that trading puts on you. And I think one example of that is how you hold a position. And there are some people that are very good at holding longer term positions and can develop conviction and can really withstand drawdowns. and there are people that want to be in and out, quick,
Yep.
but even faster than day trading, kind of the scalping world. And that really, really depends on your personality. So finding your style first and foremost is really a personal choice.
Sure. What are some of the personality traits that you have in the real world that you have found come across in trading? Or even another question would be, what are certain things that you've discovered? Because I always think that the trading journey is really like one big mirror. Like, you may not want to look, but you're going to be looking at yourself the whole time. You're going to learn things about yourself. You're going to discover things that you don't want to know sometimes, like your actual weaknesses, like certain emotional roots of something that happened when you were 3 years old and you're still finding a way to process within a chart and within a market. Like, what are certain discoveries that you've had?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's a great analysis of it. I mean, you have to be very self-aware. I think, one of the traits that I have and that every trader eventually finds within themselves if they're going to last is perseverance. It's the ability to get knocked down
Mm-hmm.
many, many, many times, but you still get up again.
That's a Chumbawamba song, right?
You're right. You don't give up. You don't,
Yeah.
um, you don't, you don't let your confidence tank go to completely zero and just call it a day. Um, but along with that comes like a certain even keel um, way of looking at things, and I think that's yeah, as I've gotten older. And we were talking before we started recording this. I think
Yes.
I'm significantly older than you, and as I've gotten older, you start to have a more even keeled look at things. I believe where something great can happen, and you don't get too excited about it because you just know, having been through a lot, that not too long from now something bad's going to happen again too,
Sure.
right? So you
Sure.
don't you don't ride the highs too high, and you don't take the lows too
Yep.
too low either. And I think that really helps. That kind of trajectory that you develop of a way of looking at life in general really helps with trading, because trading is such a roller coaster. It can be such a roller coaster. It is such a personal experience. And you really have to be able to persevere, because you will get knocked down, and it doesn't stop. Like we were talking earlier as well. After 25 years of this, you still take the hits. You still get proven
Sure.
wrong. You still can feel like, oh my God, I've been doing this for 25 years. How can I be this big of an idiot? You
Sure.
still feel that. The thing that you do differently is you're not taking big losses. You're not having those problems that you were having in the beginning, but you still take those hits. You're still wrong, 50% of the time in my case. um,
Right.
and,
Which
and
the
you
beauty of
keep
trading
going.
is that you can be wrong 50%
Right,
of the time if you've got risk management on check.
right,
Like, most people, if you tell them I can be wrong 50% of the time, they're like, "How?
right.
How are you profitable? That makes no sense." But that is where, the whole big wins, and small losses comes in.
Right, right. And that comment you get from people, they're saying, "How could that possibly make sense?" Are people that don't understand the basic
Sure.
math of trading, right? I tweeted this the other day. Imagine having a 50%. You're incorrect. You're wrong 50% of the time as a surgeon, or a mathematician, or as a CPA. I mean,
You'd
most people
lose your
can't understand
license.
it, right? Like you
Yeah.
wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
But you can be an extremely successful trader, even being wrong 70% of the time. You can have
Mhm.
a 30% win rate and be an extremely successful trader. So you have to get used to being wrong, which teaches you a tremendous amount about yourself, I think. And it requires resiliency, and it requires not taking things personally, and
Yes.
really just understanding the basic math of your trading system and strategy. So if you get in the nitty gritty mechanics of your trading, you have to understand the metrics. Your average win, your average losses, your R multiples. I use R multiples. You got to understand those basic roots, and that kind of gives you the knowledge behind what you're doing, so that you put it in perspective. The losses that inevitably come along the way.
Sure. Sure. What would you say is your greatest weakness that you've had to face in the market? Like, your biggest, is it over trading? Is it an inability to cut losses? Is it what is sort of your kryptonite that
No, you nailed it. The first one, over trading,
over
that has
trading?
always been my thing. And I've dealt with it, over time, and you can feel yourself slipping back into it. You can feel yourself slipping back into it. It's not something that disappears, but yeah, much worse of a problem in the beginning. And I found ways to curtail it as time has gone by. But you can, because I'm aware that it's there, I can recognize when I'm starting to slip into it, and consciously stop it.
Sure. I think
So
that's the key, right? I know Jared Tendler talks about this a lot. It's sort of like using your emotions as signals. And once you start to feel that sense of like, okay, when I start to feel this way, when I start to scroll my Twitter feed obsessively, when I start to look through a bunch of charts looking for a trade to take, even though it's not a part of my setup,
right,
I know I'm about to head in the direction of taking some trades that I don't need to. So
right.
if you can sort of, and I think this comes with time, still something I'm very much working on, but if you can sort of take pause before you take the action, that is going to be like priceless in your trading journey.
Yeah, I think there's several ways you can kind of combat the over trading thing. And everybody manifests it a little bit differently, right? Like my problem's not scrolling through the Twitter feed necessarily. My
Sure.
problem is just trying to force something in an environment where I know it's not the right environment.
Mm-hmm.
And when you can register consciously that you understand that's what you're doing, it becomes easier to not do it, right? But
Sure.
and like you just mentioned, there are plenty of mindset people out there and psychologists and everything that bring that point up where if you just bring it to the table that you're actually feeling this way, then you start to identify it and you can then understand what that emotion is doing to you so you can get it under control. But for me, there's certain statistical things that I always like to keep in my pocket too, that you just keep on hand. And it's like, if you're a 50% trader, which over time, I personally am around 50%,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're going to statistically over a span of 50 trades, you're going to have 6 trades in a row that are losers, no matter what,
Right.
period. It's going to happen. Right. So you kind of arm yourself with simple statistics like that so that you understand,
Mm.
there's no need to revenge trade. There's no,
Make it objective.
right. That you just
Yeah.
understand this is the flow that I'm in. Right. And what I do is if I have several stop outs, either in the same day or same couple of days, whether I'm stopped out for a gain or a loss, what have you, or a break even, I just take a break because it means that something is misfiring. I'm either forcing something in the wrong environment or I'm not seeing something. So I just take a break, cool it off, maybe a day or two, and just take a break. And that has saved me a lot of that agony of over trading, just that simple rule. Because
Sure.
I think my knee jerk response in the past was, well, let me figure this out. I can figure this out right away. Let's get back on the horse. You're supposed to get back right up back on the horse or go
Mm-hmm.
for it. And,
Nope.
to some extent, you don't want to be afraid. That's for sure.
Of course.
But taking a little break, decompressing,
It's
it
so
works
healthy.
for me. Gives me a little bit of a break, a reset.
It's so healthy. I remember, I think it was at some point last year, I was going through some personal stuff. I was in a weird rut with trading. Everything I was doing was just emotional. It wasn't going well. And I took a step back for about a month and a half or so, which in this trading climate that we're in, to some people sounds radical because, this is the generation of COVID retail traders. Everybody's tweeting every single day. Everybody's putting Webull cards out every single day. There is this
I don't even know what that
desire. Good for you. I think they are one of the most detrimental things to like trader psyches. It's like the Webull flashcards that show the percentage gains.
Oh,
So like
okay, gotcha,
1,000%,
gotcha.
300%. Um, so for me, I even struggled at that point. Like, do I even take a step back? Like, is that a sign of weakness? Is that a sign of, but no, it was like the healthiest thing for me. And I think stepping away, whether it's for the day, whether it's for the lunch break, whether it's for a month, whether it's for 3 months, whatever it is, I think it's healthy. And I think that's again where your personality and your style and just knowing what you need is very important. Um, Other things about myself, like how my personality comes through, I very, very ADHD. I'm very easily distracted.
Mhm.
Focus is a challenge for me. So, what that means for me in trading is I can't be in discords. I like to pop in, I like to say hi, I like to, chat with some friends. I can't be scrolling Twitter throughout the day.
Right.
I can't have 1,000 indicators on my charts. I can't have 100 names that I'm trading all the time. I have to keep it simple because if I don't, I risk wanting to be everywhere all at once. And that's half ass execution. That's lack of true conviction. That's trading in ways that aren't my own style. So that's something that's very big for me that I always have to be aware of. Um, Another one that I would say my absolute kryptonite, both in real life and in trading, is I can be a bit of an all or nothing kind of
Mm.
gal. So I love food. Love. I live for it. Your last name, Petrallia, you're Italian. I'm sure you know, are a
I can
fan of
relate.
it
I can
yourself.
relate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of times if I'm, logging my calories or trying to have a healthy day, and then I go off kilter a little bit and I break what my plan was for the day, it could be a donut. There's nothing wrong with a donut. It could be, a slice of pizza. But then I'm like, all right, I had the slice of pizza. What am I ordering for dinner? Where am
Right.
I going? I'm going to make a day out of this thing.
Sure.
I'm going to feast like it's the end of the world. It's the Last Supper. I'm going to make the most out of it. That can happen to me in trading too. Oh, that wasn't a part of my plan. I
Sure.
took this trade. I shouldn't have. I took a loss. Screw it. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to just make a whole day out of like annihilating my progress. And so that is something that I'm very, very much in tune with and working on in real life, because I do think that reflects in trading as well.
Yeah. No, it definitely does. I mean, there is no separation between real life and trading. It is real
Oh,
life, right? And
mhm.
and there I think there are very few things that so accurately kind of reflect your personal issues than trading. I think there are a few things that reflect your personality and your own kryptonite issues more than
For
trading.
sure.
So I think that it is, like you said, staring right into a mirror. And I think one of the things you do when you realize you've got these certain tendencies is develop some rules that may not necessarily be so simple in real life, but you can make some simple rules in trading to kind of slow things down. But yeah, I mean, I think your observations are dead on there with so the challenges that happen and why
Mhm.
this is so unique because everybody has different little kryptonite areas, right? And then
Yeah,
you have to be creative. I always say trading is very creative, and people look at me like I'm crazy. You have to be creative in figuring out ways to handle these things, and you have to be able to be
totally.
creative in getting past these obstacles and dealing with these roadblocks that present themselves. So I think it really does uh, require creativity to achieve certain levels in trading.
Sure. And it is interesting, like you said, how we're all so different. Like I had posted the question actually to my feed yesterday. I said, how does your trading reflect? How does your personality reflect in your trading? What things do you see show up? And one person said that he can be a little bit too carefree in real life. And he saw it as a negative in terms of how it affects his trading. And somebody was like, wait, well, that's interesting because I actually am the same way, but I find that my carefree aspect is what helps me be a better trader.
Hmm.
So literally like the same aspect of our personality can be a pro or a con
Right.
depending on who you are, which is just fascinating.
It is. It's an amazingly personal journey, and I don't think people
Mhm.
get that. They think you're going to read a book, you're going to adopt this person's strategy, and you're done. And it
Mm-mm.
is so far from the truth. And I also think one of the things you brought up about focus is really key, especially in the current environment we're in,
Yeah.
which is, what in my view, still extremely choppy and difficult.
Yeah.
Um, Focusing is tremendously powerful in trading. And unlike what you think in the beginning, where I should know all 8,000 stocks in the stock market, I should be following everything, jumping from
Nah.
here to there. The focus is really what leads to a lot of success, I think, in the long run. So, narrowing down that watch list, narrowing down that action list, getting to actually know some of the stocks that you're following,
Sure.
you start to know their personality, and it makes trading them a lot less kind of random. I will
Even
call it.
stocks have personalities. Isn't
Right,
that
they do. I mean, so
amazing? Yeah.
you get to know the personalities, how those stocks are trading. So narrowing down your focus, and like you said, 1,000 indicators. People are always looking for the holy grail indicator. Best things to watch are price and volume. And
Mhm.
if you're going to focus on an indicator, keep it to one or two. But simplifying is the key. I mean, I think that's a huge key, and that's going all the way back to the beginning of this talk. That's something I would tell my 2-year-old trader self is to
Yeah.
simplify, simplify, simplify. Because in the very beginning, I was one of those people that there must be an answer in this indicator. There must be the answer in that indicator or that oscillator, and you clog your screen up with a million different things, looking at taking in macro information, taking in data from everything,
Totally.
and simplify, simplify, throw all that stuff out, focus on the keys is really, really, really important.
And there is something that Anna Cooling says in her book about volume price analysis, where she says that Volume price analysis is an art, not a science. And again, that's one of those statements that I read, and it just brings me like a sense of peace, because it's like you do spend so much time wanting to find absolute clarity. If these things are lining up, it means the stock's going to run. If
Right.
these things are lining up, it means it's going to tank. It doesn't exist. There
Right.
is no holy grail. You
Right.
can use, an assortment of things that might lead you to the same probability, but nothing's guaranteed. And I do think that's actually one of my strengths that works out in the market is I'm very flexible in real life. And so I'm not keen on like one bull analysis or one bear analysis for the rest of the year in the market
Right.
or for the life cycle of the stock. Like, I think it's very important to be flexible because, everybody wants an answer. They want to have this fixation on bull or bear. I mean, you can see it based on conversations that you're having with traders. Some people have so much conviction
Yep.
that it's going to be one way or the other. And what I have conviction in is that it could be a combination of both. It could be, a short-term bull rally, but we're in a greater bear market. It could be that we chop for the next few months, which I think is going to psychologically be one of the most difficult things for traders who
100%.
want a narrative of up or down. Guess
Right.
what? You might get sideways. So
Yeah.
you have to be
Also,
prepared for that.
as a trader in my time frame, it also simply doesn't matter because my job remains the same. I have to
Mhm.
take good risk reward setups using proper risk management in the right environment. So I think people get caught up trying to be label traders, I call them.
Yes.
And people want certainty in everything in life and in trading, and there is no certainty. But people really get caught up in the label. They'll say, "But wait, this is a cup and handle. That means it's going higher." Because
Right.
I can label this a cup and handle. Oh, it means it's going higher, and it's no. The label you give it doesn't mean anything. It's the psychology behind that pattern you're seeing that actually means
Right.
something, and even understanding the psychology behind that pattern does not predict what's going to
Sure.
happen. It can give you an edge in where you're going to enter and where you're going to stop yourself out, but it is not a
Yep.
prediction. But people love this new bull market, bear market rally. They're just labels. They don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't predict the future, and people get really caught up in that. And really, the focus needs to be on how you're managing risk, how you're taking trades in real time, and what your basic strategy and tactics are. Like I've tweeted a few times, if someone came from the future and said to me, "The bottom is in," the bottom in SPY is in. It doesn't change anything I do, other than I would probably add
Mm,
more SPY in my IRA because I'd be like, the bottom's in. So,
a whole lot more. Yeah.
but in terms of trading, in terms of what I'm trading,
Yeah.
it doesn't change anything I do. I still have to take good entries. I still have to be tactical about what
Sure.
I'm doing. I still have to have my trades make sense. I don't just buy stuff and say, "Oh, I hope this goes higher," right? So, all those labels, people get fascinated by naming patterns a certain label, and they get hung up on it because they want to label something a certain pattern name, chart name, because then to them it means
It's gonna play out
XYZ is
the way it
going
is.
to happen, period,
Yeah.
right? And you got to get past all that and realize that you're dealing in shades of gray, and you got to focus on the risk management and living to fight another day and using the probabilities in your favor along the way.
Mhm.
So it's not a science; it's an art. There's
For
definitely
sure.
an art, and there's a lot of intuition as well,
For sure.
or
I
seed
th
time.
I think, it's funny when you mention the patterns because I'll be looking at something, I'm like, "Ooh, that's an H pattern. That's about to break down." And then like, or is it about to turn into a W?
Right.
Like, it
Always
also
involved.
depends on
Right.
the time frames that you're looking at. Like, your inverse head and shoulders might be forming a head and shoulders on another time frame. Like, there is so much that, could be competing on different time frames, but also doesn't necessarily play out. I've seen the most perfect looking patterns, most perfect. Like, this is textbook, not play out. And you just have to, it's good to acknowledge the patterns. It's good to acknowledge probabilities, but also be accepting of the fact that it might not play out.
Sure. And sometimes the ones that look the most perfect that start to fail are the best opportunities to get on board in the other direction. They
Go a
fail
little
very, very quickly.
contrarian.
So you have to be very open to all scenarios.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, there is this that is one of the psychological things that gets a little bit tricky sometimes as well is like, wait, this is too perfect. Like if
Right.
we're all looking at the same thing, like could it possibly play out. It was actually Wednesday of last week, which was fascinating to me. Market was in the cleanest downtrend, crystal clear downtrend in hindsight. But looking at it intraday, it was bear flag after bear flag after bear flag. When you were trading it, because of the little consolidation periods, there were times where you're like, no, there's no way this is going to keep going down. Is this bear flag really going to break down again? There's no way. It can't be that easy, right? It can't be that simple. And sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not, so.
That's exactly right. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's
Sometimes
not.
it is, sometimes it's not.
That's why you have to have risk management, because you're never
Totally.
going to achieve certainty. So
Totally.
making sure that you never take a big loss is, again, one of the things I would tell my 2-year trading self: never take a big
The
loss.
toddler trading
Yeah,
self.
the trader playing with blocks at 2 years, I
Totally.
would tell him to never take a big loss.
I would say that's actually a fun way for me to think about where I am in the market too, is to think of it as like sort of my toddler self. Like I still
Yeah,
have my training wheels on, like I'm still getting it figured out, because it does also remind you about the longevity and the fact that, veteran traders like yourself, which one of my absolute favorite things in the world, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, there were all these veteran traders, like guys that have been in the game for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, saying, this is one of the toughest markets I've ever experienced. Like, I've been doing this for a long time and I am struggling here. And to hear that, and to hear you say things like, you never just like have it all figured out. It's a
no,
constant ongoing like journey of self and understanding the market and your reactions to the market. And I think that's just sort of the beauty of the whole thing.
it is. I mean, the market is a reflection of, you know, many, many, many market participants that are human beings. Yes, they
Yeah.
program the algos, but
There
they're
are some
still
algos. Yeah.
human beings that program them. And there's a lot of human psychology that goes into market
Mhm.
behavior, obviously. So we're never going to figure that out, because we're never going to figure out, how humans behave to a scientific degree, at least not in
Sure.
my lifetime. So there's always more to learn. There's always more to be surprised by. And 2022 was one of the hardest years. There's no doubt about it. So if people out there had trouble, you are not alone. It is very, very difficult market.
Yeah. I love that. Matt, you were fantastic. Guys, if you're not following Matt, follow him on Twitter. It's at the Equilibrium. Honestly, I could sit here and talk to you for like 2 more hours. This is the kind of stuff I get excited about, the kind of insights that I love. So it was fantastic picking your brain. Thank you for
Yeah.
coming on.
Thank you for having me on. I love talking about the markets and love chatting with people. And you can tell when people are passionate about it. So pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matt.
Take care.
That was honestly probably one of my favorite conversations that I've had in a long time in regards to trading. I think Matt really brings forward a lot of experience and knowledge. And I think being in the game for 25 years and sort of being able to look back at, your 2-year-old trading self and being able to give advice and, sort of just the way that he explained that this is always going to be an ongoing journey and an ongoing process. I know for myself, I definitely have days where I'm like, I have to have this figured out. I have to figure this out right now. Like putting a self imposed timeline on when really you have to look ahead of you and realize like this is a lifetime. Like this is something that requires longevity. It's not a get rich quick scheme. It's all about continuity and living to trade another day and just continuing to grow and get better from that. I do think personality aspects are also very, very important to consider when it comes to your trading and just sort of figuring out, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Certain things that I'm great at. I'm very good at being flexible in real life, and that allows me in the market to not be too keen on having a bullish or bearish bias. Other things, I can be incredibly distracted, have a hard time focusing, face a little bit of indecision here and there, which is why for me it's super important to cut out the noise when it comes to too many indicators on the charts, when it comes to scrolling my Twitter feed during the trading day, being in a bunch of discords. It's just too overwhelming for me. It creates a state of analysis paralysis that is not conducive to good trading at all. So I want you guys to take a minute and just sort of consider, what are some of your personality traits? What are certain things that you experience in real life? And how do you think that shows up in the market? This is constantly just a journey of self-awareness and self-discovery. And I think once you connect both worlds, the real life world and the trading world, and you understand and see that there are so many parallels, it can really help you understand how to level up your trading game, how to make certain tweaks, how to be better in certain areas, or maybe stay away from certain styles of trading. So all in all, great things to consider. As always, trading is a very, very personal journey, and these are some of my favorite conversations to have. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give Matt a follow on Twitter, and I will see you next week on State of Flow.